I'd like to call to order the North Canton City Council meeting via teleconference Monday, May 11th, 2020. The time is 7:01 p.m. Mark, would you like to lead us in the opening prayer?
I sure would.
Thank you.
Lord, thank you for bringing us here once again. And by virtual, you're always got something way we can communicate. Thank you for the responsibility you've given us. Thank you for the health that you have given our community through these difficult times. Help us this evening to make good decisions. Help us to listen and learn, and help us to lead our community in the right path in the way that you would like us to go down. In God's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, Mark. At this time, if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Volt,
Here.
Member Fonte,
Here.
Member Peters,
Here.
Member Foltz,
Here.
Member Warren,
here.
Member Stroil,
Here.
and Member Strada.
Here.
7 present.
All right, thank you. And council, for your consideration, I need a motion and a second to approve as presented. Minutes from April 20, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting, April 20 Special Council meeting, April 27th Council meeting, April 29th Special Council meeting, and April 29th Special Committee of the Whole.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And at this time, recognition of visitors. Ben, I will turn it over to you.
First is Linda Musey. Linda, are you there?
Yes, Rick Mussey and Linda Mussey, present.
Well, per the rules of council, only one of you can speak at a time, and you get 5 minutes.
It'll be Rick Mussey.
And state your name and state your address too.
Yes. So start by stating your name and address for the record, and the time will start when you start.
Sure. I'm Rick Mussey. I live at 1546 Whittingham Street Southeast, North Canton, 44720.
When you're ready.
All right. Well, I wanted to thank Stephanie Warren to allow us to conference in on tonight's council meeting. I wanted to discuss the high volume of traffic that's passing through Sturbridge Village where we live. We've lived here on Whittingham for well over 20 years. And since Washington Square was developed, Walgreens has opened and restaurants have become a part of our community. People from surrounding housing developments, specifically Robin Hood Acres, Monticello, Montebello, etc., are all using Fraser, Arbery, Whittingham Street, and Crestland to connect with East Maple. Now, over the past several years, the flow of private vehicles has greatly increased. Private cars and trucks are not the only issue, however. Our neighborhood is being used by commercial vehicles, service vehicles, and lawn mowing trailers as an access bypass road in other areas north and west of Sturbridge. You may possibly wonder why we've chosen this time to bring the matter to the attention of council. My wife recently retired, and I continue to work from home. We live on the corner of Whittingham and Arbery, and due to the panoramic view from inside our house, we're able to clearly see and track traffic patterns very easily. Cars and trucks travel on a regular basis past our house greater than 25 miles an hour. I estimate their average speed to be between 35 and 40 miles per hour. My wife has had people honk their horns and make obscene gestures as she stops to pull in our drive in lieu of using a turn signal. However, speed is not the only issue as much as the numbers. Dozens of people walk, jog, and ride bicycles throughout our allotment daily, and we really fear for their safety with the level of reckless and speeding drivers. The other neighbors complain, but obviously have not brought it to the attention of council. As you probably know, our streets are being paved after 20 years of wear and tear. We'd like to alleviate the damage that can be done by continued abuse of our streets by the heavy flow of traffic that is inappropriate for our allotment when there is access to all businesses using Snyder, Market, and Maple Streets. We would like to discuss a no through traffic sign to be considered to be posted at points of entry. Our neighbors have talked about speed bumps. However, we know that's not really an option on a city street. I just wanted to thank everybody in council for allowing me to take the time to review the information that we have provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is Minister Chuck Osborne. Minister Osborne, are you there?
I am here.
When you're ready, sir.
Chuck Osborne, 307 Fairview Street, Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. I am addressing the first reading of Ordinance number 19, 2020, which proposes to resurrect the city's CRA program. North Canton's past history with its on-again, off-again CRA program is dubious at best and an utter failure at worst. The resurrection of a CRA program would certainly be a failure for our North Canton City Schools, as the program gives away property tax money intended to fund the North Canton City School District, our city library, and a myriad of other city and county services. Why again are city officials under our new mayor, Stephen Wilder, proposing a CRA program after retreating from a similar proposal just 4 years ago? To refresh everyone's memory, specifically on September 26, 2016, North Canton City School Superintendent Jeff Windorf appeared at a city council meeting to speak in opposition to proposed CRA legislation that was being proposed at the time. Mr. Windorf also presented a letter stating, and I quote, "The North Canton City School Board of Education wants to be clear about the following. The Board of Education does not support any kind of CRA or abatement as it reduces precious revenue from educating our students that was properly raised by public vote." End quote. Siphoning needed tax dollars from our schools undermines the community we all are trying to build up and make better. That reminder should render this proposed legislation DOA. However, there are even more arguments in opposition to a resumption of CRA tax abatements. North Canton has an overabundance of apartments and rentals, and this fact has come up for discussion from time to time. Why would you give tax abatements for the construction of more apartments? Need I mention the illegally approved tax abatement amounting to nearly $1 million for a 40-unit apartment complex named Northridge Place Apartments, and the 15-year tax abatement for construction of a residence on Harmon Street. These tax abatements were given in the dark of night and were not revealed for several years. City officials denied any knowledge of those abatements. Under this proposed CRA tax abatement, such as were given for Northridge and a residence on Harmon Street, those would now be legalized. Approving this new CRA violates all manner of your fiduciary responsibility you have sworn to uphold. Further, the proposed method of removing substandard housing with the creation of yet another CRA program is impractical. Construction of a residence costing $250,000 would require the consolidation of 3, maybe 4 properties in our 50 neighborhoods and the subsequent demolition of 3 or 4 homes. This is an endeavor no one would undertake. Who is going to build a home of this quality in a neighborhood surrounded by much lower priced homes and go through this kind of expense? I acknowledge that there does need to be a mechanism in place to plan for eventual demolition of structures in communities, and I have previously suggested a mechanism to accomplish that goal. It does not rob the schools of their revenue and is not financially burdensome to anyone. That mechanism is similar to what the Muskingum Watershed District has in place to fund its drainage projects. That is the collection of small annual fee on all structures that will go into demolition fund for removal of structures no longer serving the community. Ordinance number 19, 2020 is a non-starter as it siphons tax dollars from our city schools and city library and creates glaring disparities in our tax code. Stop and think of the businesses that have come to the city in recent years without tax abatements, and there have been many. Abatements are not needed. There are methods to accomplish the removal of structures in North Canton that do not result in a financial burden for some and a financial windfall for others. The acronym CRA should be permanently expunged from North Canton legislation. Look at the big picture and think long-term for a sustainable plan to accomplish what is obviously an everlasting issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, moving on to old business. May I have a motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 22-20?
So moved. Soretta?
Second.
Holt?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Tim?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of North Canton to enter into an agreement with the Stark County Commissioners to accept and utilize the Stark County Community Development Block Grant Program for fiscal years 2021, 2022, and 2023.
All right, thank you. Chairman Revolt.
I think we've discussed this. This particular ordinance brings the city into partnership with Stark County. The Community Development Block Grant Program has been used for low and moderate income housing improvements, as well as some other capital projects here in the city of North Canton, as we've discussed. Does anyone have any questions at this time? If there are none, I would welcome a motion to amend ordinance number 22-2020 to include an emergency clause to facilitate the timely filing with the county as it has requested.
So moved. Stephanie?
Second, Soretta?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, Daryl. May I have a motion and a second to adopt the second reading ordinance 22-20 as amended?
So moved. Vols.
Second, Foltz.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, may I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council for 3 readings for ordinance 22-20?
Revolt moves.
Soretta, second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, a motion and a second to adopt under suspension of the rules.
Revolt
So
moves.
moved, Warren? Or second, Warren?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Daryl. May I have a motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 23-20?
Revolt moves.
Second, Soretta?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tim?
An ordinance to amend chapter 1133, single family and 2-family residential districts of the codified ordinances of the city of North Canton, specifically section 1133.08E, fences and walls as described below.
Thank you. Chairman Revolt.
Yes, as we've discussed, this is a rewrite of our rules regarding fences. It is a more substantive and more nuanced approach than what we've had in the past. This tonight is our second reading. We will have a third reading following our public hearing on June 1.
Okay. Motion and a second to adopt second reading.
Foltz motions.
Soretta, second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And moving on to new business, ordinance 19-20, members Fonte and Stroya, you will be abstaining from this, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, Ben, could you mute them for the duration of this for ordinance 19-20?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 19-20?
Revolt moves.
Try a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tim?
An ordinance implementing sections 3735.65 through 3735.70 of the Ohio Revised Code, establishing and describing the boundaries of a community reinvestment area in the city of North Canton, designating a housing officer to administer the program, creating a community reinvestment area housing council, and a tax incentive review council.
All right, thank you. Chairman Revolt.
Thank you very much. As we've discussed in previous meetings, tonight is the first reading reestablishing a CRA in the city of North Canton. This will be governed by the new rules. I think it's important to enter into the record that we are considering this matter for two reasons. The first is we believe, and there is ample evidence across Ohio, that a housing program can benefit from a CRA. As I'd mentioned at our meeting last week, a project in Grandview, Ohio for condominiums had a 15-year, 50% abatement. These are critical tools for rebuilding the housing stock in various communities. The second, and this is critically important, is that the CRA is one of many tools a city should have when it considers significant, large investment. Now, we have just heard some arguments against this, and I would only point out that this program generally has existed for over 20 years in state code. And throughout that period, the state legislature has made it the responsibility of municipalities, not boards of education, but municipalities, to plan economic development and housing renovation projects. I think this is something the city needs to have as it looks to redevelop portions of its main street and its antiquated housing as evidenced in the housing study. I would add one more thing, and that is in terms of economic development, this city is essentially built out. If you look at the school district, it is built out. And I think everyone who's concerned about school financing needs to understand that that tax base upon which this new capital project is going forward at the school and all the future operating costs is not growing at anything close to the rate of the improvements and the expenses. So sooner or later, that school board is going to hit a ceiling. And unless we can figure out a way to provide more taxable real estate in this community, it's going to have problems. And that may be something people don't want to hear, but the fact of the matter is the actual appraisal numbers don't lie. So are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I do, Chairman Revolt. To Chuck's comment regarding possible harm to the school district, can you speak to what is in the CRA and the school boards say and the partnership that we're trying to align with them within the CRA agreement?
Yeah, I sure can. Remember, Mr. President, there are two components to this. The first is the housing. And if you look at the housing, and again, we're confining this to a tear down, to tear downs only. And I think that's critically important because Harmon was not a tear down.
Mhm.
That was a fill-in. This language is very precise, but let's take it. Let me give you this example. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, we have a house that's valued at $100,000, $15,000 in land, $85,000 for the house. The tax on the land, if there's an abatement, remains. The value of the house, the $85,000, goes away when the house is demolished, and that's replaced by a $250,000 or more house. Let me use 10 years because it's just simple math. If you take the value of that $80,000 house, it's about $1,600 a year, or $16,000 over 10 years. A $250,000 house is worth $5,000 a year, or $50,000 over 10 years. But at the end of the abatement period, the school is made whole with the first 36 months. And then after those 36 months, it gets $5,000 a year. And that is $3,400 more than it was receiving with the old structure. So the fact of the matter is, this is a terrific way to add value for the school. Does it work? The answer is, I think it does. And it has worked elsewhere in Ohio. The second, to answer your question, Jeff, is when we do an economic development project, a commercial or industrial project, the developer has to go to the school board first. And any abatement over 50% requires the approval of the board. So it does have a say in a project. But only from 50 north.
Okay.
Daryl, thanks for that clarification. That helped a lot. And that is different than what it was 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were operating under a more liberal, I think it was pre-1992 CRA rules. This is under the new rules. It is more restrictive. But again, it brings the school into play on the big commercial projects. They're going to have to vote on it. And they're in a position to negotiate with a developer for some offset on that tax, the 50% plus. They can negotiate payment in lieu of taxes. We could have a role in that, depending upon the size of the project. There are a number of elements here that come into play. The other thing to remember is that we might have big job projects, or we might have a major capital investment with very few jobs. And so the CRA becomes a critical element in attracting those opportunities. One that comes to mind would be a data center. These are terrifically expensive. There's special provisions in the Ohio tax code for data centers. But guess what? They don't have many jobs. Would the school benefit from a multi-million-dollar data center? The answer is yes, it would. And if we could attract one, we would benefit the schools to get it into the district.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Did I answer that?
You sure did. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, and let me just say one more thing, and I apologize, Jeff. The clerk has a new valuation sheet that he prepared for me. You may recall a couple of years ago, I had one that I did surrounding the Akron Children's. Well, Ben has created a more detailed drill down. And it once again illustrates that the real benefit of CRA is on a very big project and not on a little one. And those are the commercial industrial ones. And I think we've got some things that we can do other than tax abatements to attract business at the kind of, I want to say, the smaller end. But if you look, for example, the role that the city played in attracting Diebold, didn't need a CRA. We used other forms of incentive to get them into town. And I think that's the approach you take. You take a business-like approach. What's the best way?
Agreed. Okay. Any other questions from council for Chairman Revolt? All right, see none.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, if there are no other questions, I would like to move the adoption of the first reading of ordinance number 19-2020.
Second, Soretta.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Clerk, can you make sure Fonte and Stroya rejoin us? Have we got him yet?
I'm back. Yep, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Okay, moving on. May I have a motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 25-20?
Did we vote on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
All the way through?
Yep, we adopted the second
Okay.
reading.
Yeah, no emergency on this.
Right. Motion to read ordinance 25-2020.
Second, Stroya.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Tim?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of North Canton to enter into a contract for professional auction services for the sale of vehicles and equipment that are obsolete or unfit for public use or not needed for municipal purposes, and declaring the same to be an emergency.
All right, thank you. Chairwoman Warren.
Yes, we talked about this last week, and both Pat and Gina actually gave some additional information about how we were doing it and how it was going to be listed on the website. But we do this every year in order to kind of clean house and get rid of some older vehicles and still make some money. Are there any other issues or concerns?
Okay, is there a motion and a second to adopt the first reading?
Revolt moves.
Second, Warren.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings?
Revolt moves.
Soretta, second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, a motion and a second to adopt under suspension of the rules.
Revolt moves.
Warren, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on. May I have a motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 26-20?
Revolt moves.
Soretta, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Tim?
An ordinance authorizing the amendment of the appropriation of funds of the city of North Canton for current expenses during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020, as established by ordinance 80-2019 to account for new revenue and the loss of anticipated grant, and declaring the same to be an emergency.
All right, thank you. Chairman or Chairwoman Warren, before I give it to you, I'm getting a little feedback on this end. Can everyone hear me? Is it clear?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we.
Okay. Chairwoman Warren.
Okay, last week we talked about this as well, and Gina did some different analysis and kind of looking forward of what some of our projections might be and some different grants that came in. If there aren't any other questions, or if Gina, we don't have any new information, I move that we move forward and adopt.
Okay.
Full
we have-
second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings?
Revolt moves.
Warren, second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, may I have a motion and a second to adopt under suspension of the rules?
Revolt moves.
Where in second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. May I have a motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 27-20?
Revolt moves.
Shred a second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Tim?
In ordinance to amend Chapter 111 of the codified ordinances of the city of North Canton, specifically Section 111.12, salaries and bonds, in order to establish amounts for public officials' surety bonds.
Okay, thank you. Title tells you exactly what you need to hear. This was a legislative request from Director of Administration Diorio. Sets the bonds for Director of Law Director of Administration at $50,000, Director of Finance at $250,000, and
the mayor at 50,000.
the mayor at $50,000. Thank you. Any questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion and a second to adopt the first reading.
Revolt moves.
Second, Stroya.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Item E, we now have a discussion on the use of eminent domain relating to a property located at 1206 North Main. At this time, I'm going to turn the floor to Director Diorio. Pat?
I'm going to abstain. This is Stroya. I'm going to abstain from this.
All right, thank you. Ben, could you mute Matt, please?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, Pat, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, the administration has been working on the collection and acquisition of a grouping of parcels to constitute sufficient grounds to build a new fire/EMS/police building. And as you recall from a previous time, the necessary acreage that we need is a minimum of 3 acres. And that from your discussions that you've held with the chief of police and fire, EMS, that location needs to have frontage onto Main Street. As it so turned out, such a location manifested itself over the last late months in 2019 into 2020. And 3 of 4 parcels were available for sale that were adjoining, that were on fronting Main Street, and they did not, however, constitute sufficient grounds. So we have pursued this additional site, this additional parcel that is located directly behind the 3 parcels that we have secured purchase agreements for. We have followed the normal course of business in real estate in making a letter of interest, making a real estate purchase agreement, and we have come to that point where we are grossly apart, and that we need to pursue our course of action, which would involve eminent domain. We have reached out to an attorney who is well-versed in eminent domain action. His name is Jim Matthews. He practices at Baker Dublicar, which is located in North Canton. Some of you attended a seminar back in February, pre-COVID, at the Stark Parks in Perry Township, in which Mr. Matthews was a presenter. So we have reached I have reached an agreement with Mr. Matthews and Baker Dublicar to represent us on this. And although it is well below the threshold that would require council action, you know, if there's a contract for involves an expenditure under $50,000, the mayor and the director of administration can enter into that directly. But I would like a show of support for moving in this direction from you this evening. This is similar to what we had done a year ago in regards to the golf course, where the administration had sought a show of support in making some changes there. And so at this time, if you're so inclined, I would just, you know, like if there's any feedback to not go forward, I guess that would be appropriate at this time. Otherwise, the administration would intend to move forward.
Mr. President, this is Revolt. Jeff?
Yeah, Daryl, sorry about that. I had it on mute there for a minute. Go ahead.
Okay. Or Pat, could we give you a motion supporting eminent domain for the property located at 6 North Main Street? You need one?
I don't think that it's necessary to have one, but I'll defer to the law director. I was just, if anybody was going to object, this is the time to speak your piece. Otherwise, we were going to move forward.
Yeah, I think it's really as simple as that. If there's no one that objects, like Pat said, now's the time, and I haven't heard any, so I would assume that
no objection.
Good to go.
All right. Very
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, moving on to department reports. Pat, we'll start with you at the top. You're on a roll.
Well, I would just like to get this out to, you know, the council and to the members of the community, those that may be listening. We certainly recognize the stressful times that everyone is living under, and equally stressful are those individuals who are working with in dangerous occupations, the healthcare workers and the frontline responders. But I want to make a special plea tonight for those individuals who are engaged in the construction trades and those that are particularly engaged in the reconstruction of roads. We're one of the early communities out there working right now to get some road projects completed, and we have the virtue of having lower traffic counts, and taking advantage of that makes those workers safe. And we should note that these are not for the most part city employees. These are employees of private companies that have bid on these projects. We certainly have our employees out who supervise the project to make sure it's being done in compliance with how it was bid. And so they would be at risk as well. And construction projects in the city of North Canton, can begin as early as 6 a.m. in the morning. And that might not be something that you're used to at home, because you wouldn't be at home, you'd be at work and you wouldn't see this. So we generally start our projects that are ongoing right now at 6:30 in the morning to try to make the most of a full day and get as much done as possible. We have the ability to work 24/7 in the event of public safety. if need be. And we don't always see that or even remember that there was a time that we did that. To the extent that contractors are working on these streets and doing what they do, and are to the best of their ability following physical distancing where possible, I'm sure they do. But in some types of applications, it will require people to be close to one another. And the governor of Ohio has determined that these are essential jobs, essential businesses that need to be going. And if there's any concerns that people have in regards to these individuals and how they're performing their duties, and how it might relate to the physical distancing, I would encourage them to share their concerns or take their concerns to the Stark County Health Department, which oversees that. But as far as the city administration is concerned, we believe that the contractors are doing the best that they can with the nature of the work to keep their employees safe. So I just want to make sure that all of you are aware of that. We appreciate what these folks do, and we're just trying to get the jobs done as quickly as possible so that your roads can be restored to the proper condition. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Patrick. All right, Kathy, I'll circle back to you, Deputy Director of Admin.
Thank you. I just want to say tonight, kudos to all of our staff and elected officials. I know we've done a lot of cyber security training with all of you because, as you all know, municipalities are at risk for cyber attacks, and there are database. And today, several people reported to me that a phishing email was circulating around. It posed as if it was from the mayor, from Mayor Wilder, and it's not the first time that he's had a phishing spam type of email go out to all of our city staff. We've also had him posed as being Patrick, Director of Administration. So I am so glad to see that our cybersecurity trainings that we've done in education has made so many people aware, and they're reporting this. They're not clicking on suspicious links because when you click one, that can launch a malware attack into our data. So kudos to everybody that reported it. And I sent out an email to everyone. If you do get it, do not click on it, report it, let me know, or let AtNet know. So good job, everyone. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Catherine. Mayor?
Thank you, President Peters. Just a couple comments tonight. First of all, thank you, Council, for your willingness to move forward regarding our private property issue at 1206 North Main. Also, again, Mr. Diorio, thank you for communicating to the public our citywide projects that we have going on right now, and the safety concerns for all, not only for the motorists and our pedestrians in the area, but for all the employees of the private contractors and our city staff to be safe, practice physical distancing whenever possible, and just being aware of the safety needs when we're working on projects throughout the city. Just another comment on that, our city administration continues to navigate the operations of our city government. And I appreciate all the good work and efforts that going into that to keep things running smoothly. Last but not least is, again, dealing with the COVID-19 crisis. I've been doing some live streams on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock. I try to cover as much material as I can, as I learned from the governor, DeWine, and the Department of Health, the Ohio Department of Health, and also things that are going on in the city. And the question that always comes back, or the major concern, is what are we going to do to help make things safe for our public? And that question, I look at every day. So as we navigate this coronavirus, I think we're going to try to do our best to phase in things along with what the governor has planned. I'm very excited about the businesses. As they mentioned today, 90% will be retail and other operations in place. So just please, whatever you're going out, be safe and be courteous, and cover up, not for your own safety, but for others. President Peters, thank you very much for the privilege of this time tonight. That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Would you care to brief everybody on where we are with the flags?
Yes, I had contact with our service department today, and the rest of our flags, I think Mr. Dominic Fonte helped propose a couple of years ago. First part of May is the schedule that those flags go out. They are out. However, we are having to replace some poles that were damaged by the high winds for some of the flags that we had out already. So as soon as those poles get repaired, Main Street decorated from Everhard up to 7th Street with a patriotic red, white, and blue. And my thanks goes out again to the flags that were donated by the Rotary Club of North Canton that are around the memorial there at Bitzer Park and along in front of the Hoover District complex. So our flags are up, and I think our city is on the map for continuing that spirit that we're going to get through this crisis, and we're going to be better. We'll come out of it, better for our efforts. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Director of Law.
Thank you. I don't have much more to add. Thank you for the comments. I can assure you that the mayor and administrator has us on all of the requirements for social distancing and sanitation and sanitizing our areas and all of those things for those that remain here at City Hall. It is a bit of a beehive. We're actually quite busy right now and have been for several weeks, but we'll certainly be ready when our doors are open and City Hall is open to the public. One last thing, just to note that beginning yesterday, this is National Police Week, so you can go online. There are a variety of ways, without coming in contact and so forth with the police officers. There's certainly various ways without handshakes and so forth to thank them for their services. So if you would and have a moment, you can go online and you can see what things are available to honor those that put their lives at risk to protect us. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, next up, Director of Finance.
Hello, everybody. I have no report tonight.
All right, thank you, Gina. Engineer Graham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, despite our lovely spring weather, we're still making a lot of progress on our capital improvement projects. Today, our contractor out on Apple Grove finished all the milling and removal of the existing asphalt layers out there. Tomorrow morning, looks like we will finally have some good paving weather. They're going to start the intermediate course of asphalt. At least we'll get some paving done on Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll see what happens later in the week, but at least we'll get a jump and get that intermediate down. And then after that, we have the 3/4 inch of the polymer asphalt, but we need about 65 to 70 degrees. So not sure when we'll get that, but it'll ride very, very well on just the intermediate. Next, I'm proud to say our 2020 paving program is almost completely done with the exception of Emerson Avenue. That we've tried to get the last few days, but we've been rained out 3 days in a row. That's scheduled to get its top course on Wednesday. And also very happy that our Pineview project is nearing completion. We should get the intermediate course of asphalt on that tomorrow and also top that when they top Emerson. So 3 projects are moving along very well. The sanitary sewer project down on Northfield, Wanger Excavating is our contractor down there. And they're looking probably by the end of the week to have the 1,700 feet of the main line, 11-foot deep sanitary sewer portion of that project completed. Next would be the storm sewer, then the curb and gutter, and the base pavements. So things are moving along. We've already got the East Hill project bid out. Superior, who's got the first 3 I talked about, has that. Haven't given me a start date yet. And Superior also has the Portage project, which we're completed all the catch basin work, getting ready to start the paving with Superior on that. So things are moving along. A little better weather, we'd be a lot further along even yet. But that completes my report, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Rob. Council Clerk Young.
This week, I'm happy to report that the technological upgrades of council chambers are mostly complete. I'm just waiting on one more cord, but as of right now, I'm currently streaming from the Civic Center again. And we should be ready to go for council in person when COVID restrictions lift.
Outstanding. Good news. All right, thank you, Ben. Next up, Member Foltz.
Might be muted, Doug.
Can you hear me?
Got you, Doug.
Okay.
Speak up,
Yeah.
Doug, please.
Yeah, just to discuss Arrowhead, got a lot of compliments. I do play in the league there. That course is really in nice shape for this time of year. A lot of improvements to the pool area, and you know, a lot of people talking about good things there, and I'm happy that we've moved forward with that. Pat, I don't know, dear, if you wanted to discuss anything else, but I just see a lot of positive changes. I know we're restricted from the clubhouse and so forth, and we're following COVID-19 guidelines as far as one to a cart or walking. So I think it's been pretty successful overall, and I'm just happy the direction we're moving with the new management from last year, obviously the Petros, and just the capital improvements we're making there.
Yeah, Doug, I'd like to say, it has actually been, I think this week is 1 year.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Since we made the change. I think it was right after Mother's Day that we made the move. And, in that time, we of late have been working internally with on some capital improvement projects there. We're using our own folks. And, these were things that, should have been done a long time ago. And because the capital investment was never made, things just fell into disrepair. So a lot of it looks really different, and some of it's just, making changes to just some basic amenities and some cosmetics that make a big difference there. But as we move ahead into next year, we'll address, some of the more important changes that might need to be made. But thank you for noticing.
Oh, sure, definitely. Like I said, a lot of positive comments, and thanks for the paving and all the reconstruction in the city. Obviously, if there's more money to do more paving, I'd like to see that happen down the road. But I think, the city's looking great, and I appreciate everybody's efforts on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Member Warren.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks to the Demuses for talking tonight. I know that we've been in touch with them, and I think that they've also been in touch with the mayor. And I think maybe today, Rob and Pat kind of talked about it. And I know it's more than just us kind of thinking like, oh, we need a sign there. I know it has to go through the police department. I go through there a lot when I'm on runs, and it definitely has become a thoroughfare. You can see people using that a lot. So I don't know if maybe the first step would be to have the police put up a speed locator and kind of check that, and then get some counts on the amount of people going through. But I know they're concerned, and I I would agree, it's definitely become a thoroughfare. So thanks for them for doing that. And Daryl, your explanation on the issue about the abatements and different things was really good, and I think we appreciate that. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Member Fonte.
Yes, thanks for the flags. I'm glad we're getting them up. It's going to make the rebound in North Canton a nice corridor because, you know, things are opening up. And Steve, Mayor Steve, thanks for putting out that list for us of the things that are positive and are opening. Also, the local businesses, make sure you try to remember to use them. And let's just keep trying to get the word out. We're coming back. We want to rebound. And remember, don't curse the wind. We're adjusting our sails, and we're going to be bigger and stronger than ever. And the taxpayers will benefit. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dom. Member Revolt.
No report.
All right, Member Stroya.
Yeah, hey, I wanted to say thank you to the mayor for the live streams. Thank you to the Rotary Club. Thanks to Chuck and Linda and Rick for speaking. And support and buy local. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Member Soretta.
Yeah, just a quick thanks to, first of all, Rob for the road repairs and reports, and that's very positive going forward. Also received a lot of good comments on from a lot of people on the direction that our city has taken on acquiring the land and to make improvements to our community rather than the old wait and see approach of what's going to happen. And I've had a lot of people say that we're happy that we're taking a proactive approach to this rather than just sitting there. So, and of course, the proof is in the pudding, which way we go with this thing and how we can follow through. And I'm very optimistic about that. Also want to thank Member Revolt for a lot of work he's put in on this CRA ordinance. He's put a lot of time and effort into it with his knowledge. So want to thank him on that. Outside of that, everybody stay healthy.
All right, thank you, Mark. And I will finish up by echoing your comments regarding the purchase of property. I've had the same feedback. People are very happy we're taking a proactive approach. And I agree. It's a wait and see approach, but I think we're going to see some good things come out of both of those pieces of property. And Mayor, we really appreciate your weekly updates on Wednesday. My recommendation is, after all this COVID stuff is behind us, to continue on. That is good stuff. I mean, it really is reaching out into the community and communicating our positions on everything and anything. So thanks again for that.
Thank you, President Peters.
Yes, no, thank you. And lastly, in regards to Rick Mussey's comments, do we still employ the use of that, the stealth stat, Patrick?
Yeah, look, this is a complicated issue. And, their situation there is no different than many other people, thousands of people that live throughout the city, in which roads end up connecting to other roads, and people use that as a means to go from north to south, east to west. And in this particular instance, traveling from Schneider to East Maple in the route that they suggest, is about 3,200 linear feet, of which only about 800 linear feet is in the city limits. The rest of it's in Plain Township, south and north of their location. And, so I will take a comprehensive approach to addressing the issues, similar to what I had done up on Radford, Northeast, a year ago. And we'll get some data that will help us chart a course of action. But simply posting a sign is very ineffective. There's nothing illegal with using the public streets. There's no citation that can be given to people who travel from one, side of town to the other. So it may be more nuanced in how we approach it, but the first step in addressing anything is to speak intelligently about it, and that it requires gathering data. So I will keep you all informed of that process, and I'll be working with individuals, beginning this week to start pushing a plan forward to gathering the data that'll help us with an analysis.
All right, thanks, Pat. And actually, that's why I mentioned the stealth stat, because that really is a great tool for Chief Kemp to deploy his folks properly and more efficiently, by gathering that data. So good stuff. Okay, final call for new business to council.
Just one point of order. Could I, Jeff?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Director of Law Tim Fox did note about this is the beginning of Police Week. On the 15th, on Friday, that is always designated nationally as Police Officers Memorial Day. And I can't, speaking from my background, what we're experiencing in this pandemic, not only for our fire department and personnel and paramedics, but also, again, for the police officers, we're all on the front line. And I'm pretty sure nationally, almost 90 plus law enforcement officers have died as a result of contracting COVID-19. I'd better double check my numbers, but the last one I saw was about 90. And I just want to thank our public for following the guidelines and standards of the CDC, again, the governor, Ohio Department of Health, to keep themselves safe, and by keeping our first line responders safe, especially, again, our police officers, who oftentimes are there before our fire personnel can arrive and give aid. So to all the families who have relatives in law enforcement, my heart and support goes out to them. And when that special day comes around on the 15th, maybe just take a moment and reflect on the good that our law enforcement our law enforcement officers do day in and day out. Thank you, President Peters, for that, allowing me to make that comment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Very well said, and I concur. Okay, looking at our meeting calendar for the remainder of May and into June, next Monday, we'll have our virtual committee of the whole and a special council meeting. May 25th will be no council meeting due to Memorial Day. And then June 1st will be the public meeting on Ordinance 2320 and a virtual committee of the whole meeting. And that rounds out our agenda for the evening. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Revolt moves.
Second, Troy.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Thanks.
Say yes.